Hi, hi viewers. This is Thiru from Dataxan again, and this is a webinar series of related to blockchain, which we have been doing in the last 2 weeks. This is series number 3, and it's our pleasure to see you back again in this series. In this series, it is more about we want to, as we talk to a lot of customers, the CXO level, CIO level are very skeptical about when and where to start the blockchain and how they can adapt it in a risk-free manner. So we thought that giving a first-hand information about how CIOs can think about a risk-free early adoption of a blockchain, and it is going to immensely help them. So that's the reason I and John, who is my counterpart, will also talk about the same subject. As you know, my introduction before, I'm giving it to John for his introduction. Hi, John. Could you please introduce yourself?
No problem, sir. Thank you. My name is John Riley. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CNC Blockchain Advisory. And just quickly on my background as an Oracle Consulting Services, about 17 years, helping organizations with business process changes, user adoption training, software implementations, digital transformations, and got into blockchain just about 2 years ago now. And decided to start my company, advisory company, really to help organizations understand what blockchain is and how to prepare for it to get ready for those projects and those initiatives, because it is something new. So the topic today is something, myself and Theo really think is very important for the executive team, and especially the CIO level, to understand what they need to prepare for or what they should be doing to prepare for it. And hopefully some of that insight we share today. Sure.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Now, the session is going to be more about questioning and answering kind of a session, and we will start with some of the basic items on how it is going to be, blockchain is going to be relevant for the industries, and how it can make it help for specific industries and the domain people. So that is how we are going to start about. So John, would you mind starting with your questions first?
Sure. So I think one question is pretty important. Why does blockchain matter to CIOs? Why would it matter to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of people do have similar kind of understanding, and I've been doing a lot of research about it. Probably I'll have something to share for the viewers. So I'll go for my screen sharing mode. Gartner has did a study on blockchain, and when they studied in length about that, with an assumption by 2022, close to 10 billion of business activity is going to happen in blockchain. This is the kind of answers they got from CIO people. Now, if you look on the pie chart, pretty much there is only 1% of the people have already invested and deployed into blockchain. There is few other people, which is like 8% of the people, they have a short-term goal, and they are actively experimenting on what they are planning to go forward.
Dude, one thing, we can't see your screen for some reason. The slide you're sharing.
Okay. Let's see about that.
There you go.
Yes, sorry.
Perfect.
I'm sorry about that. So I'm repeating back. If you look on the pie, which is given by Gartner, pretty much there is only 1%, which is already CIO people have invested and deployed the blockchain in their system. Some people have a short-term goal and they're actively planning on experimenting on some of the stuff, which is 8%. There are 14% of the people do have for a medium and long-term planning. But If you look on the other side of the radar, 34 percentage of the leadership team is not interested because they are not seeing the value of blockchain in their business. And 43 percentage of them, they see value, but they have not planned for any action. So combine of 43 and 34 and 14, these are the people who actually have not taken any plans or they are looking for a long-term plan, right? See, this in essence, being blockchain being a hype, this is in essence is very alarming situation. What is alarming is if you look in the hype cycle, which is given by Gartner again, blockchain has passed the hype cycle at the peak, and that is moving towards through the time of disillusionment, right? Wherein a lot of people have not seen the gains of blockchain as it was expected, and pretty much, if you look on the blockchain world between ICO world, the initial coin offering world, and the token world, and the non-ICO world, which is how the corporates has to look in, the ICO world of a blockchain has taken a tremendous leap in what they are talking about, but the non-ICO world is not gone so far into that blockchain implementation, be it a private chain or a permission chain and something like that. Now, the value addition what is supposed to come back has not come in, but lot of industries, if you look in, this is the hype cycle from the previous thing. This is a shark fin module. If you look in, people who started with the innovation exercises, who are early adapters, who have the majority of that, yes, just sticking in this bracket, which is close to 50 percentage of the corporates have already taken some initiative or the other in implementing the blockchain. Although it is not widespread for the people to understand what kind of benefit it is giving back to them, but the adoption has little bit started in a way or so, right? Uh, in this norm, these are some of the examples of companies which already started. The Walmart, Ford, Facebook, Chinese company Alibaba, and all these people. Now, how does this matter for CIO? The early adapters will have much bigger gain and leap when they go for a blockchain implementation. The non-early adapters, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to say the screen. Yeah, the non-early adapters will have to follow the leader when they want to make it happen. So it becomes a very crucial time that the CIOs of an organization, they think blockchain to become a very imminent and relevant element because of its decentralization phenomena, because of its distribution phenomena, that they can start adapting blockchain in the early phases by choosing the right use cases and scenarios and so on, and then keep moving forward with a pace of new age technologies, which is how the society and the culture and the world is redefining the way in this peer-to-peer and shared economy. So this is how it matters for CIO John, which is like my opinion and recommendation would be that they have to start increase that 1% to a multiple other higher percentage, and they have to start getting into the adoption mode for the blockchains.
No, I
So
think
thank you.
um, and I think that's really the basics of how the CIOs are getting in there is just that understanding of where it's at now and seeing that where do they fit? Are they people that are early adopters? Are they ones that are not paying attention to it? And if they're not paying attention to it, understanding why they should. And it's kind of when it moves into like how would a CIO get started? And it's really kind of those lines of seeing where in the business it would fit, kind of that use case you are talking about. Of where could we leverage this in an area that might have a bottleneck that we could do, and doing it small. Not, I tell people, not taking on Goliath, not trying to take it on as a big, normal, large implementation of a software, more in the lines of, let's start very small somewhere that we know we have challenges, and then let's see what those results are. And then let's see what others are doing already in our industry first as well, to see, hey, can we leverage some of what they've learned already, and how do we reach out to them? I think, we kind of talked about this earlier, as people have to start realizing in CIOs that blockchain is going to be a team sport, and you're going to have to team up with different people. And as you get started, it will make sense to kind of reach out and ask others, hey, what are the best ways to get started if that are in my industry? Or reaching out to subject matter experts of, I'm not comfortable enough with blockchain right now, but am I doing this right? And it's kind of that initial mind shift. What were you thinking? I mean, how CIOs would get started?
That's right. That's right. Uh, so, John, what do you think the CIOs, even if they have changed their mindset, do you think they get the right kind of support and the buy-in from the rest of the executive team or their junior team in order to implement this kind of a blockchain use cases? How do you feel about that, John?
I think the biggest thing is that it's going to be that mind shift of getting the buy-in from the mentality of, if you can get the executive teams and the CEO to really understand, here's going to be the value to our organization with something new and something that they've never come across, and understand how disruptive it is. I think it's going to be the CIO's responsibility to get them comfortable with it, to understand we're going to move forward in this transformation, and blockchain is going to be a part of it. We're going to have to even do a mind shift, or even our way of thinking as a culture, how we've done business. How do we bring this on board the right way? Do we just try to wait for everybody else to do something, or can we have to take the initiative and go, okay, we're going to be innovative. What does it take for us to do that? Does it take for us to change business processes? How do we do that? Does it take for us to align with different people in the industry? Okay, how do we do that? It's a different way of thinking of doing business. And I think once that message can be brought to the CEO level and the executives, and getting them to buy in, then it can be pushed down in the culture of the company of, this is the initiative we're going to take on. Yes, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a change to processes, and to legacy systems might have to change. But we're not going to try and do it in a sprint. We'll take the marathon approach. We'll kind of ease our way into it and kind of pace it, and making sure we're ready for it. I think that's one of the challenges for CIOs that they might have to overcome. Some of them, some might have a harder challenge than others, and even some CIOs might not even have the mindset to adapt to it, and that's going to be a challenge as well. And when you kind of look at that, I mean, if you're guiding, you know, these initiatives, what do you think too? What would be the right track for a CIO to guide the initiatives around blockchain?
Yes, John. This is a question that most CIOs are trying to come out with. How do I start with the initiative first of all, right? And in our framework of thought, based on a lot of readings and based on a lot of understanding from the customer problem, I'm sharing a screen, and which is like blockchain. We split it into four business initiatives. Now, one being a disruptor, it's about how new business model can be created with blockchain as a foundation, right? It is more likely it is an utility function or a finance function which is related to a token-based blockchain initiative. So those are some of the common lines which people are talking about, which is predominant in the market now in some of the areas. The other is in the new age of technologies, there are a lot of digital assets being developed in the market. The digital assets, what we refer as the energy asset, the power asset, or anything like that. Now, in this digital asset market, people can think about how these digital assets can be distributed among different parties who are part of the network. The third is about the efficiency improvements. Now, when we are talking with the multiple parties and each of these parties interact, there is always um, some level of reconciliations and track and trace a problem which happens. Recently, actually, we were talking to one of the manufacturing customers, and they believe their provenance for that just-in-time bill of material which has come in is not the right, with a not the right quality and can be improved. And we were trying to do a POC with them, and they like the POCs, right? So that kind of just-in-time quality inspection for the materials which come in for a manufacturing is helping. So that creates a lot of efficiencies. Third, lastly, about fourth is about records management for trust equilibrium. Right, lot of recent way of international communities are coming in, like the GDPR for European region, and India is also too starting with their own regulations and laws and cyber security thoughts about this. So now, what all these laws and regulations they're trying to bring in is they are thinking about a mechanism which can increase the trust level of the technologies, using the technologies when it comes to a shared economy and a peer-to-peer economy, right? So, as you pointed out, when people take their business initiatives using blockchain among one of those four brackets, each of these brackets do have their own strengths and weakness, and choosing the right use case in terms of uh, giving the better business value and solving the customer's problem in a better way, it is going to help in a very, very, very good way, so that it is a win-win for both the customers in the shared economy, which is nothing but the pure customers. And also, it is going to be a win win for corporate management, which is going to attract more of millennials, and they are going to spin the economy in a new way of doing things, a new way of doing business. That is how the blockchains and their initiatives are going to start and go in a big way. So that is what I think, John, is going to come out in the next few years, and it's all going to fall in the one of those buckets of business blockchain business initiatives.
No, I agree with you 100%, and it aligns just with things that I've been seeing and also hearing from different people as far as executives. And kind of one thing you kind of brought up there, were regulations like in GDPR, and it's some of the, I'd say, leaders out there are slow to move the blockchain because of regulatory or legislative constraints are out there. There's no laws around it in certain states or countries that's holding them back from it. And because blockchain is so new, there's not a lot of standards already set by industry. And that's a challenge for a lot of people when they move into blockchain. Like, well, how are regulators going to look at this? And my thing is, it's kind of, this is the opportunity of pulling regulators in at the same time you're looking at blockchain, saying, hey, we're looking at doing these blockchain applications. Is this going to be, say, if you're in healthcare, HIPAA compliant, and we're going to build this and tie in this, and this is where you can have this audit trail now. Do you see the value in this, and do you think this is in compliance with what the standards are as of right now? Because as we start to put standards in place and we start to move that area, you're going to have to bring regulators in to be a part of these discussions, I think, for a lot of the execs and CIOs, so they are comfortable saying, you know what, we know if we're building a blockchain application and there's no laws around it really, let's work with our regulators and make sure that once there are laws, that whatever we build will fit into those kind of like guidelines. Do you see that as holding also people back as well, of not having set standards or laws around blockchain in different areas or countries to getting or to adopting blockchain? And if that's the case, do you think that's hurting them that they're waiting?
Yes, pretty much from the regulatory standpoint, what I understand is some governments, like for example, some of the European governments and some of the Asian governments, and yeah, of course, the US government,
Yeah.
they are defining to redefine the way the business is going to happen.
Yeah.
It is more to meet for the new age of doing business. Uh, the main factor which is influencing about the redefinition of the businesses, the trust and the participation.
Yeah.
Now, uh, as we all know, the blockchain is defining the mechanism on how trust can be distributed and trust can be brought in by a technological way of doing things. We know that. And the participation. Now, when the globe has shrunken to a global village, trade is also shrinking to a trade, micro trade, which is a global trade, right? That's the kind of exploration that we are doing in. The biggest of things, what we see in the past, has become the smallest of things in the present. Uh, in this way, all people are going to be one universe. All people are going to be in one network, and we are marching towards that. And blockchain, by the way of giving the decentralization, it is adding more and more participants into that network. Now,
Yes.
what it makes is individual countries' regulation, like US federal regulation, Indian central regulation, they have to become a global regulation.
Yes.
Now we are marching towards that, but before then, there are a lot of granular take forward steps that people have to take forward, which is like the interoperability regulations. Yes.
Yes.
So we are talking about a lot of cyber laws, a lot of regional regulations like country or continent and so on. But it is all going to merge very shortly into a global regulation. And these are one baby steps which governments and everybody is talking towards. And I believe, and I strongly see that happening. Blockchain as a technology also is trying to bring in that relative regulatory form of technology version into that. Example, Hyperledger used to have security by means of channels. Now, what happened recently is in the versions, incremental versions they are talking about, they are also bringing in access control mechanisms within the channel and outside the channels in terms of read permissions, write permissions, and execution permissions. Now, this is a facelift for Hyperledger as a blockchain technology. And similarly, if you look in Ethereum, which has earlier was a public network, now they also started to get into a private network, and they are also bringing in a lot of security around that network now. Now, every technology is moving towards abiding to a regulations which governments are trying to impose.
Yeah.
Now, as technology grows, as governments and regulations and laws grows, and it is all going to converge into a beautiful one universe phenomena, and
Yeah.
it is going to be very shorter, and we are going to see that in the very next few years. And yeah, CIOs can take this as a point and start adapting to the blockchain way of doing things as it is going to become one universe, one centralized network in a very short near future.
I agree with you, and I think and that's kind of that. It goes to that adopting of how do they get out of thinking that no, it was business. You didn't want to do that. You don't want to have everything tied together. But now with blockchain, you have all these ways of tying in businesses with other businesses. That okay, like you said, private permission blockchains, read write access to my blockchain to my data. That's something where you'd never want to give access to a competitor. But now you can be like, okay, we have these same standards across the board, same problems. I'll let you see this part of my information. And that's that mind shift, that change in culture of thinking, no, 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 we lead the way to, okay, how do we leverage these new laws that are coming out? Are we preparing for them? But also needs who my organization needs to be a part of it, or who do I need to bring in really to help me understand it? No, I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. And as we kind of get in the culture of it, how do you seeing blockchain affecting the culture of organizations? Like for CIOs, how do they handle that kind of shift in a culture where it's from people that are favor of it, people that are not in favor of it? How do you get, a CIO to push that message out of, this is going to be the future, and we want you to understand it? Is it having them educate those people, getting people up to speed on it? Because if they try to do it from the old-fashioned standpoint of an old software implementation, whether it's from Oracle, SAP, I'll just install it, my people will learn it as we go along. It's not that same mentality when it comes to blockchain. It's like, understand preparing for it first is going to benefit you even more. How do you think CIOs can make that shift in the culture for the company?
Okay, this is a very, very valid question when it comes to a risk assessment standpoint for a CIO, right? The first thing CIO's mind will spin around when they are talking about adapting to a new technology is about the security, how they are going to protect their information system, and how that system is going to be also equally competitive enough to go to the market, right? So the CIO's major concern is about what are the bottlenecks in the process of adapting to the blockchain, right? Now, the first major concern is standards, best practices, and leading examples, right? Now, I think it is the time that we have to accept the fact there is no a best standard or a best practices for a blockchain. I think this
Yeah,
is one way negative aspect which is evolving. But
yeah,
the second thing is uh, the leading implementation fact. Now they have seen Bitcoin's success story for years in the past. They have also seen some of the tokens being got stolen from some of the blockchains. But there are different versions of answers to it, right? Blockchain as a network was not tampered, but it is all about the wallets, which is around that got tampered, and because of ignorance of the people using it, or because of the way the developer community has introduced some kind of interventions into the systems and so on, right? Now, combining these two, CIOs can take a baby step. They can think big, but they can start bringing in a small step into the process. Now, what they can think about is uh, identify out a whole lot of scenarios, which is a critical one, a very meaningful business beneficial one that can translate for the benefit of their business and solving the customer's problem. Identify that narrow scope of touch point. Then what they can build is they can start doing a reference architecture for their systems. A reference architecture as a blockchain way of doing things, because blockchain doesn't talk about approvals as in a workflow approvals, but they are talking about consensus. So when we are moving from a workflow process to a consensus process, there is a difference between how it needs to be bridged into the system. The gelling becomes a lot more change management,
yeah.
which is like 80% of the blockchain implementation is about change management, and it's about 20% which is technology. Now, having identified that use case and identified the reference architecture, make one simple real-time pilot implementation, check for the feasibilities through different ways of monitoring. Now, this will give the first level of confidence, both for the CIO as well as for the management which they want to report to, because pretty much it is about CIO reporting to the CEO, and the buying from the CEOs and their stakeholders would mean immense for the implementation. Now, this is the first level of steps which the CIO can embark upon. And subsequently, they can move forward to going and getting into the next level of use cases and scenarios in the another set of new business models and scenarios, and probably then they can start to looking into the angle of building the new disruption way of doing things, right? So that's the reason we spoke about the four business initiatives. So take a baby step, start to crawl, and then start to run, then start to run faster. So that's the way forward of CIOs to take the blockchain initiative in their systems.
No, I agree with you. I think it's perfect. And it kind of goes into kind of the next question I was kind of going into is, you know, do CIOs need to start looking at taking on maybe like a hybrid IT model approach where they are leveraging their legacy systems, but also being able to incorporate new innovative technology like blockchain into that and transitioning that IT mindset, like you were saying, with blockchain, it's about 80% business process change and 20% about the technology and changing that mindset because you're looking at now changing governance models as well. How do they take their existing governance models and add blockchain to it? And will that need to shift that focus? Do you think they even, CIO should take this, a new approach to how they run their IT divisions? Because if they're trying to leverage old legacy systems that might need to be changed eventually, but then bring in blockchain technology, should they move to maybe a hybrid IT approach or even another approach where it allows for innovation to come in, but not take away from everything that's already been working for the organization and not try to do it too fast, like you're saying, doing those baby steps. So is that something they need to change to as well as that approach, do you think?
Yeah. The hybrid is a mechanism for a brownfield implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And a brownfield implementation, as you said, where a lot of IT systems exist and the blockchain is going to coexist into their system. But even in blockchain, there are different types of blockchain, like private chain. Probably I'll share one screen about how different types of blockchains are prevailing in the market. Yeah, conceptually, blockchain uh, are federated in nature, which is like it is a consortium where more banks are coming together and they have the access to a particular information. Probably we could take it as an example of know your customers and so on. Or it could be something like a private network where it is one manufacturing unit or multiple, they are trying to build a blockchain within their intra group. And their access limit is going to be more restricted. And it is like ideal for integrating with the database management and stuff like that, right? The third is about the public network, the classical example being the Bitcoin. It is open and it is open for all the public for the transactions. The cost involved is going to be minimal, but it is open for all the public. Lastly, it is about the hybrid. Okay. Now, you asked a question about hybrid for the enterprise as a whole, but my answer is going to be in two fashion. One is yes, hybrid for enterprise as a whole is required by way of implementing blockchain as a private network. That is when they are talking about a baby step, they can go for on-chain, off-chain integration. And on-chain is where the blockchain will start to register its transactions on the ledger. But off-chain is the where the enterprise system is going to interoperate to provide the results, the collaborative results of the enterprise. But even within the blockchain world, we can still further go for a hybrid, which is a private network combined with a public network. By way of doing this, they can still be applicable. The mechanism is going to be the same for any blockchain implementation, but it is going to help us tremendously in terms of decentralizations and scalabilities. How it happens? The public chain is prone for data openness and information openness, whereas private chain is more restricted for data controls, right? By way of doing this combination, they can gain the advantage of this as well as this in terms of more security, scalability, and decentralization. Yeah, so in nutshell, the answer is yes. Try to bring in on-chain, off-chain model, and in the on-chain, try to bring in both private and public model wherever applicable. And way of doing so, it is going to help tremendously, uh, giving the increased capacity of how blockchain can be leveraged into the business. Does it answer, John?
No, I think that was a perfect answer. I think it covered exactly kind of what I was thinking. And it kind of rolls right into the next question. And you kind of look at the public and private have the hybrid approach. Is for CIOs, what should they be aware of when it comes to the challenges of building blockchain applications? What should they be aware of? Now that you start talking about public and private blockchains, and if they're new to it, what are the challenges of building a blockchain application? Should they be preparing for?
Yes. So in the earlier steps, we were talking about the taking a baby step, then crawl, and then run more. The As we also discussed in the past, that the standards and best practices of a blockchain is not fully established. So when we are going for a blockchain, the standards which is going to come in for our implementation is going to be kind of half taken from the best practices of the digital transformation initiatives which company has taken in the past. So in a digital transformation initiative, there are at least they might have taken the first seven best principles or 11 best principles in the which is quite living in the market, some of the best principles. Now adapting those digital best practices along with blockchain way of doing things needs little amount of tweaking, because in digital transformation it is about not about the implementation of technology but solving the business problem in a digital way, right? It could be even as simple as changing or automating an excel Microsoft Excel fields, something like that. So when we try to bring in the best practices of digital transformation and try to accommodate with the new standards that we are going to build for a blockchain, there is always going to be a gap, right? That gap is, it could be a typical problem of a bug resistant smart contract. In digital transformation, we would call that a zero defect system, but in a smart contract, it is about how do we make it bug resistant, because the first entry which is going to go into a ledger, it cannot be reversed. The ledger is finalized. So in a traditional world, we just can overwrite the data, but in blockchain world, overwriting is not possible because of the immutability nature, right? Now, I would call that as the first bottleneck. How do we bring in a governance mechanism to stitch the digital transformation principles along with blockchain principles? So that is something has to go along with the reference architecture and a new standard guidelines which is very suitable for the organization. That is point number one. The second point is about uh, the if you look in the regular web application and or any other webified system, the security has got mechanisms of testing. There is like vulnerability testing, penetration testing, all this kind of testing. But blockchain has not come on with an automated way of testing. There is no tool to test the gas. There's no tool to test the consensus. These are some of the open things which is not yet fully matured, right? Now, what it means is till the tools arrive, people have to start working in the manual way of testing, and in the manual way of testing, the test cases should be so exorbitant that it should accommodate the consensus in the way the business is trying to accommodate the consensus, right? So this will be the second challenge that the CIOs need to think about. Lastly, uh, a release management in the digital transformation. It is people have taken a different maturity stages. They lastly they call digital factory. It's like one line of uh, uh, reusable or repeatable components which can be combined together, aggregated to deploy the packaged application into production. So this digital factory defines the process. Now, there is no such thing called a digital factory or anything for blockchain. No, it is still in the process of evolving, right? It is still in the baby stage. Now, we need to define our own digital factories, and by way of bridging all this process, standards, testing, and the digital factory way of releasing, I think these are the first level of change, enterprise level challenges that the CIOs has to pass through before they go for a high level implementation. That is the reason we recommend to go for taking a baby step, identify the proper pilot case, uh, understand the success of the pilot case, make it run for real time for 2 or 3 months. When all the users have covered their tests and test coverages, and it's going to be a foolproof systems, and all rest of the transformations are in the pipeline. A lot of organizations are working towards to bring in into the nature of doing blockchain business, and will definitely fall in line. And at the app time, all these other stitches of process and standards can be brought in subsequently in a progressive way. So that is how I see that, John.
No, I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect explanation, and it kind of rolls into you were talking about, the pilot or business case of trying to figure out where in the organization to start, trying to figure out what bottleneck issue you want to address with blockchain, and how do you do that? And it's like, okay, where does it make sense that we can see a small, people call them either MVP or a proof of value or pilot, and so many different definitions people want to call it, but it's really just starting with that small first initiative of where in our organization can we start and figure out where blockchain would fit. And if it's usually an area that has a challenge where it's a bottleneck or it's regulatory constraints or you're working with a third party vendor, where would you suggest, organizations start looking at when they say, hey, we want to start somewhere in our organization? Where should that be? That makes sense that once we see the value of it, we can go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, how do we do that next step of pushing it out a little bit further or bringing it on or bringing more people up to be a part of it? Where would you recommend most CIOs start or look even to address those questions?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. I will try to pull out a slide that we have used it in the last session, the last webinar session. This is one of the slides we were talking as which areas the business needs to identify for their blockchain use cases. There are multiple different mechanisms to find it, but these are the predominant areas where business can see things. One, if there is a trust issue among transacting parties, it could be transacting parties, could be an inter parties or intra parties. So it could be like within your organizations, or it could be an outside your organizations. So if we see a trust issue coming out, it could be for a manufacturing unit, the quality of the finished good, or it could be like the data which is going to come in from a different accounting team. So all these are the trust areas which we can talk about. The next is when cross-departmental and cross-organizational business processes, they have lot of element of degree of touch points, which they tend to disagree in most of the times, right? It is not only on the trust aspect, but it is about at what point they have to agree to close the transactions, right? So that disagreement between the cross-departmental and cross-organizational. So similarly, it could be as simple as a quality check for an automobile, where we could see that a paint getting faded, right? It could be multiple issue. It could be a painting issue, or it could be a issue in the metal sheet which is being manufactured, or it could be the process of ionization and stuff like that, right? Now, each of the siloed functions, if they have created an element of incorrectness into the process, it'll all get piled up to bring a major problem in the system, like the way the Volkswagen car has recalled a lot of their smoke detection systems, the braking systems of the Ford or the Toyotas, screw, all these are manufacturing quality issues, right? So this is all happening because of the cross-functional information that is being exchanged, right? So we have to identify those areas. Lastly, the main important is about in case if we have intermediaries, and possibly that is a corruptible intermediaries. Now, these are the different teams, different areas where business can start to identify how a blockchain will fit into the system. Now, once they start identifying that and get to the the problem on how the blockchain can resolve the issue. The blockchain way of doing things will resolve the issue. Now, once they get into that, then that is when that scenario would be the best scenario, which both the CIO as well as the management team can have the buying in taking it for the next step for the implementation.
I think it's a perfect way of getting CIOs to understand that part right there of where to start or how to even figure out where to start. I think is the biggest thing. Like anything else, it's not the idea. It's like, how do we get started? Everybody's always worried about, because once you get started, then you get momentum. But until you get started, or at least say, this is how I can start, everyone's in the confusing stage of, well, what are we going to do? How do we get this going? And it's 1,000 different things. But if you can get that one thing defined of, we're going to start here, here's a challenge, we know we can address it with blockchain just based on what we've researched and what others have done. Let's see the value ourselves. And I think, it's a perfect explanation of that. And you kind of brought this up earlier around, we're starting and bringing in smart contracts. And I don't think a lot of CIOs are even familiar with smart contracts or what they are and how they can impact them, or making things more efficient. And also kind of, we talked about cutting out third-party vendors. This is kind of that game changer with blockchain technology, where this one component is really going to change businesses, of a smart contract to do business like they've never done before. And I was wondering if you could explain at a high level again what smart contracts are, and really then how they will affect organizations, but also the challenges right now around smart contracts and what they're not capable of doing and what they eventually will be able to do.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, the CIOs or all leadership team, they write a business case for a blockchain by defining its decentralization in the smart contracts, right? Because the smart contract is going to sit in the party's machine or the system or a node or anything like that, right? Now, that is the positive side of things. Smart contract can help for an insurance company where the party can see what the thumb rules of a smart contract are, which is the way positive things coming from the centralized, moving it to a decentralized way. But on the other side, uh, the dynamic nature of the regulations, let us say insurance policies, let us say the interest rates. Now, governments could suddenly say, from today, the interest rate is going to change from X value to Y value. And there could be a lot of times the regulatory norms could say, okay, the sanctions imposed between these two countries, right? Now, these are mechanisms in which pulling out a blockchain peer from that country is going to be very difficult and take, I mean, implementation of that is going to be a tricky part of it. The challenges of doing that is going to be so immense. It is like it proves it has a global rollout mechanism, but otherwise it also proves it is uh, it is not so dynamic to accommodate to all the um, global regulations that is going to come forth. The classical example is I could think about is we did the POC for a manufacturing customers for the just-in-time implementation. So we chose a pilot for three customers, and the peers are three customers, and it's a private network where the fourth peer is about the manufacturing unit itself. The customer suddenly said, "No, I don't like the third person. I want to get rid of that person." Now, it is like we have to undergo a lot of a change process to disconnect that network between the third person and the other one and two persons, other one and two peers from the whole network. This is not something as a like a Bitcoin way of doing things, where as I have the digital ID, I can get in. If I don't have the digital ID, I can come out of that. It is not that way because it is more a private network. So the governance of such a large scale implementation where multiple parties are going to come in, it's going to redefine the way we are going to do the business. So these kind of challenges has to be upfront thought, and a thorough thought process has to build in, and we need to build the mechanism of engaging and disengaging. For example, onboarding a peer and deporting the peer. Those kind of formulas has to be brought in. So if we get into such a situations, we should be taking an easy step of doing such things. I think if we have those things in mind, we will have a phenomenal way of doing the business and going forward with the blockchains and redefining our business models. And that's what I think John is going to help.
No, I think so too, and I think that's something. Like anything else, it comes with time. So, and so we do have a question from the audience, and one is, so they'd like to know: is there any channel open right now for enterprises to post their real-time conflicts with blockchain? Do you know any open channels where somebody in an enterprise could post a challenge that they're having with blockchain?
Yeah, I'm just reading the question, John. Post the real-time conflicts with the blockchain. I'm not quite sure if it is a conflict the user is a participant is mentioning about. It's a conflict within the blockchain or it is a conflict about the blockchain. But let me give an answer about how it works for a private network world like a hyperledger. Now, uh, in the technology part, if the technology, see what a hyperledger is trying to define is they have created their own forum called RoboChat. Now this forum is all about whatever the conflict you are having by using this technology, they are trying to give an answer in the forum itself. Now there are a lot of open communities do bring in such a kind of an answer when there is a conflict which is arising. Now, there is one conflict which happened in one of our POC implementation is so it's a technical answer I would like to highlight here. It's about the gossip protocol, which is like a protocol which helps to talk between peers. Although that could be three people in the network, but there is also a mechanism where only two people within the network can talk to each other in terms of sharing their ledger and data and stuff like that, right? Now, this actually is lot of giving lot of advanced advantages for the enterprises, but it do gives a lot of uh, disadvantages for the enterprises. Now, there was one conflicting nature of this gossip protocol, which was raised to the forum, and we were able to get an answer from the forum. And the conflicting nature of this is uh, how does the access control policies get applied when we get into this gossip protocols, which is when two parties are talking, because access control is for enterprise, gossip is two parties. Now, this is an enterprise conflict because this is talking about enterprise as a whole, and this is talking about only two parties in nature. Now, the answer is there is no hyperledger answer for it because there is no peer to peer policy that can be created. We can only create a channel policy in Hyperledger Fabric, and the channel policy is the enterprise policy. So, the answer is you have to live with it at disadvantage. So, that is how we have to wait for the next level of maturity to happen and resolve the problems.
Yeah, I agree. We're still so new with blockchain that a lot of these things just haven't been put into place yet, and that's the challenge of being early adopters to it is working through these things where by the time it's mass adoptions, these won't even be questions anymore, which is the funny thing. Um, and I know we don't have one. There's another question in there. It's not around ICOs, but it's how many ICOs are hitting the world? Is there any who can be regulated for those? So I'm trying to understand. It might be, are they asking, with all the ICOs that are hitting the world, and it's not like it was last year at this time where there was, I call it the wild, wild world of ICOs, where I was getting a white paper sent to me every 2 seconds. So it's a little different. So regulators have stepped in different states and it's different countries as well. Some, if you look at Malta, Malta's really looking at being that ICO kind of like cryptocurrency blockchain hub, and their regulations around ICOs are different than in other countries right now. I think same thing in Sweden. In the US, the SEC over here for us has stepped in, and they haven't necessarily put guidelines in, but they are putting things in place to make sure fraudulent ICOs aren't coming out. A year ago, I can remember, there's people can get funding for ICOs and nothing was behind them. There was no backing, there was nothing built, and it wasn't even real people on their teams. So I think even the community has been policing or regulating ICOs because now that people they're reading white papers like this is a fraud. Don't invest in this. So even the people in this space have been finding a way to purposely regulate how these ICOs are coming out because now ones that I see have more quality behind them. They have more tangible information in them, and also some of them already have platforms built before they go into ICO, and that's another thing that wasn't happening before, where they already have a product and then they're going to do an ICO. So it's been shifting from what it was a year ago, I think, from regulatory constraints or standpoints of how they're looked at. Thierry, what do you think about that? Have you heard any more about that on regulations and ICOs?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'll answer this, John, but I think in the interest of time, probably we'll have to end with this answer. Yeah. See, in my last Googling, I found that there are 2,800 ICOs around the world. That's the last Googling a month ago. I did that.
Yeah.
And the regulations is, yeah, definitely for an ICO, the regulation is called token economy. The token economy comes in a way, the regulations are only going to come at the place when it is exchanging with the cryptocurrencies. Now, the cryptocurrencies and the actual currencies, when they are exchanged, the token economy define what the regulations are, how it has to map it for a token to a dollar. Probably some say it is one token is $1, some say it is like 10 tokens are $1, right? Now, I believe it is at that stage where it is trying to join a regulatory system like currencies to a cryptocurrency. I think this touch point is where the regulations are coming in. And there are a lot of token economists who define or who gives the advisory part on what it should be done. I believe the second part, the rest other part of a cryptocurrency is fully controlled in a non-regulatory way. This is this part. And it is the way it is, people are liking to have it to take their values and to convert their service tokens or utility tokens. This is the way people would like to take it forward. I think that is one meaning why people are pouring in to create the crowdfunding using a token mechanism. I think that is the only way the centralized bodies are going to become the decentralized bodies, and it is going to redefine the way how business is going to get executives in the shared economy and in the next few years as a future generation.
No, I like that. A lot of that I wasn't aware of, so thank you. That's perfect. I know we're out of time, so I think we're probably have to start wrapping it up. So through, I'll let you kind of close it out for us, and but thank you everybody that was able to join us today.
Yep. Thank you all the participants and viewers and bye for this series. We'll get back to you in the next series by next week and hope you have enjoyed it. You can touch base with us, either to me or Thiru or John. We will be ready to help you at any time you need your help. Please do write to us. It is anything on blockchain, you can come to us and we will be happy to answer you. And thanks for your patience and participations for the whole 1 hour in the past. And I hope you have enjoyed the show and see you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.